Hello guys, we are the Royal Concept from Stockholm, Sweden, and you are, as well as we are, listening to
Recess with Spinelli.
Hej på er alla svenskar. Vi är på internationell radio och vi pratar svenska. Och jag fattar inte varför riktigt, men ni lyssnar på
Recess med Spinelli.
och vi älskar er. Hej.
Hej.
You are listening to Recess with Spinelli, WSPN 91.1 FM, Skidmore College Radio, and Hoxton FM in London, England. And today we are here with the Stockholm Swedish band Royal Concept. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you
for having us.
so much for having us, man.
Now, your music definitely has a very happy, peppy, very kind of an earworm, catchy tune to it. Is that what you're going for the listeners? What do you hope listeners take away from your music?
If we can make people happy, that's beautiful. Like, music to us is it's melodies and chords and lyrics, and there's not a real purpose when we write songs. When I'm feeling sad, I write happier songs. When I'm really fucking happy, I write heartbroken love songs, you know, and I give them to other bands.
Now, do you think it's important to write music that is easily accessible in that it's easy for people to connect with?
Somehow, yeah. I mean, I don't see a bad thing with that, certainly not. But that's not really what we're going for. Like, it's never affected our decision in a melody or anything that it should be easier for people to catch up. That's a Max Martin thing, or a typical songwriter thing. Mm-hmm. We are a band and we're trying to develop, our world. But I definitely I lean towards that kind of melodies. I just like that kind of, accessible melodies. We're from Sweden, by the way, so therefore the accent and the major grammar fuck-ups that we're gonna do tonight.
Now, have you ever thought about doing like concept work before? Like writing a concept album?
It's just we're living in a time where the album means, albums just doesn't mean anything anymore to most people. You're lucky if you get people to listen to one of your songs, and it truly affects our writing in a way. Like we're trying to punch as many songs as possible, really, and hope that one of them or two of them will end up on a playlist somewhere on Spotify and that people will actually notice. That's just the climate we're in. So it would be it's I think it's sad in a way, but that's clearly the future.
So when you're writing your songs, do you write them essentially as having them as a single in mind?
Sometimes we feel like this could potentially be a single, and then we maybe make it even more single-ish, and maybe a little bit easier, and maybe a little bit shorter, and you know what I mean? Like, this could actually work on radio, so we're trying a little bit. But without, we still want it to have quality, you know? That's the most important thing to us. And sometimes, if I read a ballad, for example, I know that this is clearly probably not going to be a single for us, and then we can make that one a little bit more interesting, maybe lyrically, or a little bit more conceptual, maybe.
Throw in that 2-minute solo if we feel like it or whatever,
Now, when you say quality versus single, are you leading to believe that perhaps singles don't necessarily have quality attached to them, or?
Oh, they definitely have quality. It's just we're not really aware of this that much, but now when we're talking about it, you come up with the melody, we come up with 10 melodies a day maybe, and if one of them is very catchy, or you come up with a really catchy line and people are like, David, this is really catchy, you start to think of it as a single, and then you maybe make it a little bit easier, easier to catch the first time you hear it, because that's what a single is about, I guess. Like, that people should like it the first time they hear it.
Do you take this approach as well when you're playing live?
We improvise a lot on stage. That's how touring is. That's how we keep touring fun and interesting. Like, we couldn't play the same show every night. It's just too boring. I've seen so many bands that does it, and I admire that, but we just couldn't do it. I'd rather go really bad sometimes, but at least, I played it by ear and based it on the audience that were there.
Now, do you prefer to play shows that are pretty small in areas like here in Albany, Hollow Barn Kitchen, or do you prefer to play larger venues where more festival styles? What do you guys like best?
Probably we like the smaller shows more. To play a small venue that it's packed with people is the most beautiful feeling. Because also when you're playing festivals, you're playing for your fans, but you're also playing for a lot of other people, and that's great. But it's really hard to get 20,000 people connect to the same band, because the taste is just different.
It's just, when you're able to see people's facial expressions and see how they dig it and react to certain things. Like, if you say something funny, you see a few people light up or whatever. to me, that's that beats like a huge crowd.
But I know that there are artists like Bruce Springsteen who's playing in front of 80,000 people every night, and everyone feels connected.
Yeah,
you know,
that's super cool.
And he's obviously doing something. You know, he's smart and he's good at it. He learned through the years, so I'm fascinated by that. How he does it. You know.
What can you learn from a smaller venue, from the interaction with the audience, that can perhaps influence your music writing or music playing in the future?
We learn a lot from them. We try out new songs constantly. Like, do people react to this one, or is it terrible? You know.
The song that, to my understanding, launched you guys into the media was definitely "On Our Way." Is that correct? And what did you guys take away from that? What doors did it open for you?
It definitely got us some bigger spots for sure. And we just wrote a song, and that song seemed to, you know, people seemed to like it. I think it definitely gave us a bigger audience than before. We were compared to the Strokes and Phoenix constantly. That's how we started. Like people started talking about us and our similarities to the Strokes and Phoenix, and those are two amazing bands. So I don't mind it at all, actually.
Now, are those bands influences, or did you just happen to fall into a similar sound that could be put into the same playlist?
Oh, they're totally influences.
Why do you think bands of a certain era tend to have similar sounds? Like, if you go back to, obviously, classic rock, you can definitely figure out what year certain bands were performing and writing to nowadays. What about the music scene lends bands to kind of maybe copy, get influenced by, or I guess sound a little similar every now and then?
I mean, first of all, we're all fans of each other in one way or another. So, you know, we're like, you know, Paul McCartney heard a Beach Boys record and did Sgt. Pepper. So that's, I'm not comparing us to them though, but you know what I mean. That's one thing. Like, we're fans of those bands.
Yeah.
And another thing is that we're using kind of the same equipment. Like the computer is obviously a big thing nowadays, and bands tend to produce their own albums nowadays, and they're writing on their computer, and it's a lot of samples, and you know that just affects the sound. And it's also like suddenly Imagine Dragons hit a big song, and then you get 20 other bands trying to sound like Imagine Dragons just because they have labels and they have people that are telling them to do that. You know, not many people in the music industry tells you to do your own thing.
So have you found guys that are starting to sound like you now?
Yeah, definitely. But I think honestly with us, we see our live setup. Like, we tour with bands, and then we see those bands go on another tour, and they do a couple of tricks that we do. We're falling to the ground.
Now, Swedish music culture, if you had to generalize it, now I think it's one of the largest exports in Sweden, and I think it's third largest music export per capita, if I'm correct. So what does that lend itself to for bands leaving Sweden and performing and marketing themselves to other cultures and other areas?
There's definitely a lot of writers you can write with if you're in Sweden, because there's so many songwriters there. We haven't written with any one of them yet, but it's possible.
We've noticed that when we mention we're from Sweden, like here in the States, people automatically give us some kind of quality stamp, like, oh, Sweden, cool, gotta check you guys out, you know? So we gotta thank ABBA for that.
But that's also weird. I mean, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's that's just really weird, and it'll go away in a few years, I think, and it'll be like there's cool music happening in every country.
Does Sweden focus on heavy music education at a young age, or do you guys all just kind of fall into this? I mean, is there something about the culture that makes it desirable to be a musician, maybe?
I mean, that's definitely a cool thing in Sweden, that you, if you want to play an instrument, you can go play an instrument for free. That's really helpful, you know. The education system, you don't have to, you know, buy expensive time with a teacher. Like the government will provide. You know, if you want to play violin, you should play violin. You know? And the colleges are free, and you know.
We both started out playing violin at the age of 5, I think.
But I'm very grateful that I got to play violin for free. And you know, when I wanted to play guitar, there was a guitar teacher for me. You know, that kind of stuff really helped. So that's amazing.
Have you ever thought about incorporating violin into current music?
Yeah, we have a song called "Damn." My dad is a cello player, and he's playing cello on that track. So why not?
So you come from a musical family then too?
Yeah, Both my parents are musicians, yeah. Philip's dad is a rock star, baby.
My dad was a rock star in Yugoslavia.
Is there an earliest memory when you realized that this was something that you definitely wanted to pursue as a career?
Honestly, I think, to me, I wanted to become a soccer player, and I still want to become a soccer player, but I'm getting too old now. To me, I noticed that I could play guitar, that it was easy for me to play guitar, and that it was easy for me to play instruments, and when we were teenagers, that was a way to... For example, I wasn't a skater. I couldn't skate at all, and all the skateboard, and all the cool kids were skaters. I went down to the skate park in Stockholm and I played Green Day songs on guitar, and they all loved Green Day. So just by playing Green Day songs for them, they started liking me. And even the older kids liked me because I could play Green Day songs on guitar. You know what I mean? So it was a way to, I guess, to get popular or just to get somewhere from where you were, you know. But then, like, you discover that it's actually art, and you know that it means a lot to you, a lot more to you than you thought.
Now, why do you guys sing in English? I mean, have you ever thought about singing in Swedish? I mean, I assume singing in English definitely opens up more doors internationally.
We grew up listening to all those bands. Yeah. Even the Swedish bands that we grew up listening to, they were also singing in Swedish, in English. Yeah. I wrote a song in Swedish last year that got #1 in Sweden. So we write in Swedish too.
What was that song?
It's called Slå mig hårt i ansiktet. Hit me hard in the face. If I translate it. The artist is called Thomas Stenström.
Now, you guys also just released your brand new EP, Smile, this past August. So what are some of your first impressions, your first thoughts? What do you guys want to say about it?
It was just a really joyful process. A lot of fun. And we tried to do something that was a little bit different from the first record. Just so we can get a bigger spectra and do something completely different next time, you know. It's also cool to be on tour because I see like Pavel our drummer, sitting with his computer, and he's obviously working on stuff, but you don't really know what, and it's exciting. Like, then we're gonna go home and we're gonna show each other all these ideas, and it's hopefully it's gonna be good. The song Hurricane wasn't even supposed to be on the record, and we just had one extra day in the studio, and we were like, okay, let's record this one. I like the song Higher a lot. That's the one I'm most proud of.
Now, this was recorded in LA, if I'm correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does LA offer, or how does LA perhaps influence even your sound that perhaps couldn't have been achieved in Sweden for this EP?
The weather, first of all. Sweden is so dark and so cold. I'm suffering, you know, we have an expression called winter depression. You guys probably have it up here too, I guess, but it's just when it gets darker, you get depressed. And I go heavy into those periods where I just can't do anything. I'm just constantly sad. And to go to LA was, it's definitely a way out of that, because it's warm all the time and it's sunny. You get the vitamin D. So that's one thing, you know. And then there's so many possible opportunities there, which also could be a bad thing. But you know, it's cool. Like it's just a dream to be there and to meet all these people and to just have fun. It definitely makes me more interested in writing something that no one else could write. Like, you know, because it's very competitive there, which is fun, you know. And you can go to shows every night and you see so many bands and so many cool artists and stuff. And you know, that's great. That's very creative and really good.
So it's not so competitive in Stockholm?
Not as much, no, because it's just smaller. And everyone benefits from each other too. Like if it goes really well for Tove Lo, for example. She's huge. Like, and everyone is trying to like get Tove Lo on this record. And you know, that's just how and it's actually possible because it's so small. Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows each other. Yeah. So we're just happy for all the Swedes that are doing great.
For the rest of this tour, is any one place that you're looking forward to the most?
Pre-sales in Chicago looks really good, so I'd say Chicago will be fine. Also, I have some family. I'm back in Chicago now. I have some family in Chicago. This guy emailed my mother a few days ago, and he was like, I've done some family... He's an American. I've done some family research, and you're obviously relatives. We're relatives. So I think he is my grandmother's cousin, and he's not coming to the show. I hope you bring earplugs, Jim, because it's going to be really loud. But so I'm excited about that. That's going to be fun.
That's cool. You never met this fellow before?
Oh, no. Never heard of him. My American relatives, you know.
So is there anything else that you guys would like to add? Any final thoughts about music, your band, life?
The only thing I can say is that we will never stop, and we will come to get you in a very good way.
Well, thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
You have been listening to Recess with Spinelli, WSPN 91.1 FM, Skidmore College Radio, and Hoxton FM, London, England. And we have been speaking with Royal Concept from Stockholm, Sweden. Their brand new EP, Smile, is available for purchase now.
just wanna see her smile.